10 cars you'd never guess shared lights. What's up everyone? Front and rear lights are often described by marketing types as being like the eyes on the face of the car. It's true really, as they're usually the first thing you see out on the public roads, and therefore highly important to the brand's image. A lot of effort goes into creating a recognizable shape. However, over the years there have been quite a few successful models that decided not to bother with all that and the testing that goes along with it, instead just borrowing another vehicle's lights. Due to the front and rear lights being so important for differentiating cars from other models, it is rare, but here are a bunch of cars that did just that. 1. Aston Martin Virage and the Volkswagen Scirocco Mark II. What does the Aston Martin Virage have in common with the second-generation Volkswagen Scirocco? Both cars are coupes, both use petrol, and that's about it. Well, hang on a second though, because there is one interesting detail many car enthusiasts overlook: the tail lights. The Aston Martin Virage used the same tail lights as the Scirocco Mark II, and they fit so perfectly to the back end of the Aston that nobody really noticed. If you ever get a chance to own a Virage and you need to replace the tail lights, don't go to an Aston specialist. Ask your local Volkswagen dealer for help, or search for some Volkswagen lights on eBay. 2. The Callaway C12 and the Vauxhall Tigra. Callaway is a famous American tuning house and has been at the forefront of turbocharging tech since the late 70s. Over the years, Callaway has produced many incredibly fast Corvettes, and in the mid-90s, the C12 debuted. Based on the Corvette C5 architecture, the C12 was an extremely fast and capable sports car with a unique body built in-house. Despite sharing the mechanical underpinnings of a Corvette, Callaway wanted to distinguish itself, and to do that, it needed components to hide its Vette origin. The taillights were sourced from Europe, and oddly, borrowed from an Opel or Vauxhall Tigra. 3. The Invicta S1 and the VW Passat. In 2004, the once famous British company Invicta was resurrected and introduced their new model, the S1. The car was a sports coupe with handsome styling and a supercharged V8 under the bonnet, good enough for 600 horsepower. The design was modern and sleek, and everything would be perfect if it weren't for the rear lights, which were nicked from an ordinary Volkswagen Passat. Invicta just tilted them on the side, which managed to hide the origin of the part, but eagle-eyed fans soon realized that this part was sourced straight out of Germany. 4. The Bova coach and the McLaren F1. The mythical McLaren F1 is a car of many descriptions, and even today, the level of craftsmanship and technology on board is still amazing. However, even the multi-million-dollar F1 shares some of its parts with much more mundane cars and vehicles. The turn signals came from the Lotus Elan, pretty nice. The rearview mirrors from a VW Corrado, still nice. The rear lights though actually came from the Bova coach bus. Yeah, the characteristic round tail lights are in fact lifted straight from a bus. Who would have guessed? 5. The TVR Griffith and the Vauxhall Cavalier Mark III. If I were to tell you that parts from the economical Cavalier from the early 90s were installed on TVR's punchy Griffith Roadster, you might think I was joking. The V8 Griffith, running from 1991 till 2002, was one of the most successful TVR models of all time. Its tail lights, though, were nicked straight from the Vauxhall Cavalier Mark III, or the Opel Vectra in Europe, simply mounted upside down. Genius! Still, the fastest Griffith could reach 60 miles per hour in around 4 seconds, probably the fastest any Vauxhall or Opel has been. 6. The Jaguar XJ220 and the Rover 200. The Jaguar XJ220 was an enormous step forward for the company, and one of the fastest cars of its era. In fact, it was so good that Jaguar engineers and designers were too busy working on the mechanics and aerodynamics of the car to think about distinctive taillights. Not a problem though. When the car was done, they called their friends from Rover and asked to borrow a few pairs of Rover 200 rear lights. The stoplights fit perfectly. Cleverly, Jaguar simply added a piece of plastic trim which gave them a more menacing look, and then called it a day. 7. The Lotus Esprit V8 and the Toyota AE86. One of the strangest cases of shared taillights is between Lotus and Toyota. Lotus have always used parts, engines and components from different companies, so it's not unusual to find Ford, Renault or Rover parts used with the Lotus badge. However, for the later version of their famous Esprit, Lotus used the distinctive Toyota AE86 rear lights, which somehow looked totally different on the back of a Lotus. Very few people ever recognized that, and understandably so. 8. The Nissan 300ZX and the Lamborghini Diablo. Sharing taillights is, as you can tell, a pretty common occurrence in the world of car manufacturers. Sharing headlights, however, is a bit more challenging, since the front lights are considered an integral part of the unique design language and identity of the brand, really. Usually, it's tough to implement them in another car successfully, but Lamborghini managed to pull it off when they borrowed a pair of headlights from the Nissan 300ZX. The Diablo was initially released with pop-up headlights, but towards the end of the production run, that trend was clearly over, and thus they needed fixed headlights as soon as possible for the later production cars. 9. The Morgan Aeromax and the Lancia Thesis. One of the most intriguing companies in the sports car world is of course the legendary Morgan. Stubbornly, and rightfully holding on to very specific construction, design and manufacturing methods, Morgan became famous for its unique cars which combined retro flair with modern technology. In 2009, the company presented this beautiful Aeromax coupe based on the Aero 8 Roadster. The car featured a specially designed streamlined roof and a different rear end. To complete the design, Morgan borrowed the LED taillight design and assembly from another 2000 styling legend, the Lancia Thesis sedan. 10. The MG Xpower SV and the Fiat Punto. Produced for just 2 years between 2003 and 2005, the MG Xpower SV is a largely forgotten British muscle car, which was assembled in Modena and finished in the UK. Powered by an American V8 supplied by Ford, it's pretty wacky. The MG Rover Group invested heavily in engineering and the design, but since this was a low-volume model, some components needed to be borrowed from other cars. Funnily enough, its distinctive mean-looking headlights are in fact taken from the Fiat Punto Mark II, and to be fair, it works pretty well. So there you are. Did you know any of these? Did I miss any out? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching. Cheers!